One of the things that people don't think a lot about is the decay of our actual society. You see, people, they look at the government as being something that's corrupt and something that is destructive, but what people refuse to admit, or what people refuse to look at, is really themselves, because ultimately, corrupt, wicked entities such as fascist governments can't exist in healthy societies. In healthy environments, these type of entities can't really thrive because people won't tolerate that. Good people don't tolerate that. It's when society's been decayed to a point where the average person isn't really all that decent, isn't really all that honorable, isn't really all that competent, isn't all that intelligent. That's when these type of entities can really rise. I remember I was in college and a professor was talking about Nazi Germany, and I brought up that the culture in Nazi Germany, the culture in Germany existed before the Nazis came to power. It wasn't a situation where the Nazis uh, came into power and they created anti-Semitism. The conditions are already in place. The banksters already helped destroy the economy. Uh, it wasn't just World War One. A lot of that had to do with, well, actually, the bankers set up a scenario before World War One that sort of led to an economic decline, and therefore rose tensions, and you had conflicts between different nations over resources. Although they said it was over assassinations, the root cause of the assassinations were really resources. So you have this World War One, and that puts Germany in a really bad situation where they say, well, okay, we're going to pay back, we're going to pay the debts acquired by the other side, the Western side, the British and the Americans, blah blah. We're gonna pay X amount of marks or whatever in their own currency. Well, they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the money to really pay for it, so they just what they did was they kept printing out the currency. The Weimar Republic, they just printed out the currency to meet their debts. They didn't have the money to just print the money. That's essentially what we're doing today. They just print it and they print and they print and they print and they print away till they got to the point where the currency wasn't worth anything. Then the economy went through a major collapse and they dealt with hyperinflation. The currency wasn't worth anything. So then people were desperate and you had this really horrible economic situation and the culture, the situation, the environment was really negative. The anti-Semitism existed long before Hitler and the Nazis took over. This was something that was already in place. I think Hitler and the Nazis took advantage. They exploited the anti-Semitism, the hatred towards the Jews, and used it for their own advantage. They used it. They used certain themes that they knew would play well with the masses, and they used this to get control. And I see this same thing happening in America in the sense that you can't say that the United States government is just this wicked entity, and and not everybody who works for the government is wicked, obviously, but you see the United States government doing these horrible things across the world, using the military to bomb innocent people, and creating wars that are completely unnecessary. You see all this destruction. You see hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians being killed because of an unnecessary war, a war that was completely avoidable. You see this across the world, and you have to look at the people, the American people who support this government, because Americans have consistently supported the United States government in these wars, whether they made sense or not. I mean, at least at the beginning of the wars. So you can't really just say, well, the United States government has done horrible things without looking at the type of people who are putting these so-called leaders in power, who are empowering the actual government. Because the government can't do much of anything without the people. The people are a lot more stronger than they think. Without the tax dollars, what can the government really do? Yeah, they have guns, they have bombs, but I mean, how the heck are they going to get bills paid? How the heck are they going to have the resources to get anything done? The people are much more powerful than they actually realize. But people they allow and people they allow these type of governments to do the thing. So ultimately, we have to take responsibility for what this government is doing if we're supporting it. And a lot of people can say that, well, not all of us support it, but overall, Americans are supporting the United States government. They are behind it. They are supporting what the United States government is doing, and at some point we have to take some type of moral responsibility. If people, when they vote, yeah, I understand that the entire system is rigged. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party is very, very rigged in the sense that they both work towards very similar goals. But at the end of the day, we can't just avoid all responsibility because we still, if you show up to the polls and you're voting for a Republican or a Democrat, you can't say you're voting for the lesser of two evils. It's like saying, well, I want to be sexually assaulted with this condom as opposed to another condom. It's ridiculous. You're lesser of two evils is a ridiculous concept. You're still supporting evil. So you could have supported a third party. People say that, well, a third party doesn't have a chance to win. I understand that. But at the end of the day, you can't support the system by lending your vote to a candidate that you know isn't going to do the right thing and then turn around and complain and pretend like you really didn't have an option. I just don't think that's very honest. What the United States government does overseas, dropping bombs on innocent people, is going to have an impact on us. And I just think it's immoral to support a politician who is engaging in evil, the murder, complicit in the murder of innocent civilians, and then try to defend that decision. Why don't you just admit that you made a mistake? It was stupid to me. I knew that if something was wrong with the story that Bush and Cheney pushed, the United States attacking a country with weapons of mass destruction, then it seemed very uncharacteristic that the United States would go against a power like that. Obviously it was. And once I found out that I was suckered, that I went against my own instincts, I learned my lesson. I didn't say, oh, well, he did the best he could. I didn't make up excuses. I faced reality, and I see the Obama fans, and that's really what they are. Most of the people supporting these politicians, particularly Obama, they're not really into politics. They don't know much about politics. You talk to these people, and there's really nothing going on there. It's really a cultural fad thing. They're fans, not supporters. Really, they're fans. I heard a lot of rhetoric about how people went to his rallies and behaved like it was a concert. Well, that's true. It was a concert to them. To them, it was like American Idol. To them, it was like an event for entertainment. Who cares if his policies weren't really that different from John McCain? Who cares if his policies really weren't that different from Bush? They had this campaign that appealed to simpletons. And that's really what both Bush and Obama's campaigns really did. They really, Americans are so dumbed down at this point that even their campaigns are just designed to just appeal to people with the simplest intellect, the lowest intellect. They put a picture of Obama and put the word change. Change what? What the hell are you changing? Seriously. Changing what? I spoke to these people during an election, and they didn't know anything about his policies. I could have listed some crap that John McCain was supporting, and said it was Obama, and even the most hardcore Obama fans will say, "Oh yeah, I support it. Yeah, yeah." I mean, it's like there's nothing going on upstairs. Change, hope in what? Country first, John McCain's. I mean, society. It's not just an economic collapse. It's not just a political collapse. I think Orloff was really on to something when he talked about a social collapse and the different stages of collapse. I think what we're seeing in this country, we're going to see. We are seeing a social collapse. We're seeing a scenario where people lose faith in actual people. You can't trust individuals around you. Simple things, such as, what is a man's word worth? What is a man's word actually worth? How many men actually honor their word? Not many. A man's word is useless in America. For you guys who aren't Americans, let me tell you something. The American word is nothing. We don't honor our word for the most part. Very few Americans actually do what they say they're going to do. To us, it's not a big deal. Another characteristic is a lack of responsibility. Nothing's ever our fault, by the way. For all you Europeans and Asians and Canadians, nothing is ever an American's fault. Unfortunately, virtually all of us are like this. No matter what happens, no matter how much we screw up, we'll never admit it and we'll never take responsibility. This is a very common characteristic of Americans, and this is what I mean by social decline. Kids with no respect for their elders, kids who talk back to their elders, talk back to their own parents, get an attitude with other adults. I was sitting in a room with a friend of mine, and his kid tells me to be quiet. Yeah, fortunately, my friend corrected him, but you have any idea what would have happened to me if I would have told one of my mom's friends to be quiet? Yeah, tell my aunt or my uncle or something like that. I mean, kids can't. I mean, parents can't get their kids to do the simplest tasks. I mean, I better stop while I'm ahead. But what we're looking at in this country is much more than just an economic, political decline. We're looking at a social decline, decline of society, decline of morals, and decline of common sense. So, anyway, guys, just me ranting. Tell me what you think. And don't forget the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. Bye.